Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of On the Range podcast with HOGG Tactical and Kelley Defense. I am Mark Kelley from KelleyDefense.com, and join with me, as always, is my co-host and friend from WarHog.com, Rick Hogg. How's it going, buddy?
Man, Mark, it's going great. Just want to thank you, the viewer listener, for giving us your most precious commodity, your time to tune in. Guys, we couldn't do it without you. We are live out here at CanCon 2026 at the Clinton House in South Carolina. We've got a great guest. We've got Bill from the Second Amendment Foundation.
Woo! Yes.
High production value, bro.
Yeah.
That's the way we roll here.
No, that crowd is actually here.
Oh,
yes,
man.
they are
Yeah,
here.
We're live in
is.
studio
That's right.
It is bumping out there today.
at the Clinton House. So
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So what's the Second Amendment Foundation been? What do you guys got your fingers into?
Oh, man, we are so busy right now. It's such a great time to be fighting for all of our Second Amendment
Yes.
rights. We've got 56 active cases brewing right now. We've
Wow.
got 3 challenges to the NFA going right now.
Okay.
And this past week, we've all been real busy. The 34 new ATF regs that they announced last week
Yes.
in D.C. finally hit the Federal Register. So we've been digging through those, making sure we understand what they say, what they don't say, what they fix, and what they don't fix.
What they do. So give us a quick rundown.
Yeah.
On it. You don't have to hit all 34, but just some highlights that some people may not be aware of.
Sure. So I think what they've attempted to do, I think as a whole, it's important to point out that what they seemingly have done is in releasing 34 new regs all at once, it's allegedly, and I haven't done the math here, but it's more regulatory reform at the ATF in one foul swoop than has happened collectively in the last 20 years.
Okay.
That's what they're claiming, and that seems to bear out. So this is a seemingly intentional effort to really make a substantial change to the regulatory regime at the ATF. And so we applaud them for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously we were talking yesterday before we sat down, about look, we all believe that the ATF should just go away entirely. That would be ideal. But boy, if the ATF is going to continue to exist today, we would much rather have folks running it like Robert Sakata and
Correct, yeah.
Rob Leiter than the folks that we had there under the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So we've got an improved situation, if not a perfect one, but we've got a markedly improved one. So notably in the new regs, there are some important things that just kind of finalize things that have already happened. There's a new proposed rule to get the pistol brace rulemaking, which was vacated in a number of courts already. So that thing hasn't been enforced for a couple years at this point, but they're formally going to take that off the books. They are going to make some changes to the definition of machine gun that puts it back into alignment with what the courts have already said over the last couple years. So some of those things are good that they're finally being codified in the regs. They don't really change all that much from a practical position because the courts have already fixed those problems.
Gotcha.
But there are a bunch of new regs that are hopefully going to create some quality of life improvements for the gun owner, which is a really good thing. There are some new regs about transporting guns across state lines, transporting NFA items across state lines.
So let's hit on those. Can you kind of get into depth on those? Because those are important to us. So being firearm trainers, traveling all over the country.
Yep.
So right now we've kind of got some loose protections under the Interstate Transport Act.
Right.
So we can kind of go state to state. Even that's vague where it says I can make a short stop. Well, what's a short stop? Your definition short, mine short, his short, all different, right? So I'd love to hear a little more on that if you got some info.
Yeah, so on that one particularly, because the Interstate Transportation Act was somewhat vague in terms of what sort of stops were allowed and what weren't, people that were traveling with their firearms in accordance with the Transportation Act we're never really sure what sort of stop opened them up to pretty significant legal liability under whatever state law that they were in. So what the new rulemaking does is it clarifies that certain sort of necessary stops like food, beverage, bathroom, even an overnight stop, stopping to pick somebody up or drop somebody off, that these are all considered necessary to regular transportation, and so that you're covered by them expressly by the reg. The idea there is just to create some additional clarity, relieve some tension and some confusion for people that are just trying to do the right thing.
Sure.
And, you know, also just the reality is what it is driving across the state. I mean, some of the states in this union are awful big.
Huge.
Thinking that you're not going to stop to go to the bathroom or even stay overnight
is unreasonable.
Yeah. So, this one's designed just to relieve that burden, take some of the anxiety out of traveling across the country with your guns.
Yeah.
So we think that that's definitely a benefit. It seems to be all for the good. We're still digging through the specific language to make sure that everything is there as we would want it to be.
Yeah.
And if we find nits to pick, which is entirely possible, what we'll do is, we have a notice and comment period. That's the way these regulations work. The ATF says this is something that we want to do. The entire public, including Second Amendment Foundation, gets 90 days to comment on it and say, hey, here's what we think is right. Here's what we think you guys screwed up.
Yeah.
And everyone gets to make those comments. So we'll be going through all of these, and if there's comments that we need to make saying like, hey, we think this could be a little stronger for the gun community in one direction or another, we'll give our advice. But that's certainly a really good one. And then similarly with NFA items, as I'm sure you guys know, if you wanted to take your NFA items across state lines, typically what you had to do before was let the ATF know ahead of time and get approval in order to do that.
Yeah.
Under this new reg, you're no longer going to have to do that. Any state-to-state transportation of an NFA item, assuming that it's legal under state law where it is that you're taking it, as long as that transportation of the firearm or whatever the item is going to be for under 365 days. Basically you're not permanently moving, but you're just traveling with it. You don't have to get any advanced, you don't have to give advance notice or get any advanced approval from the ATF to do that. You can just go about your business. So
some of the language in the writings, like you made a great point, but some of these states and even these local municipalities were taking liberty, in some of these things like travel and all these other laws. Are you seeing like a flavor switch, at least during this administration, on how those local municipalities are acting? Because like you said, you go to some of these northeastern states, and they took a big chunk of that liberty and kind of did what they wanted with it regardless.
Not really.
Not really? Okay.
I mean, I think if anything, we've seen the opposite.
Really?
When you have a national administration that is, at least in certain very important ways, much more pro-gun than the previous one certainly was, it kind of emboldens some of the localities and, in all of the gun control happy states, like New Jersey and Maryland, Massachusetts, California, like Hawaii, the big six that are kind of the worst of the worst. They feel even more emboldened to make sure that they ratchet down what they can control because certain things are now taken out of their control. And if they don't get the feeling that the feds are on their side, because in large part right now they're not on that issue, they'll try to do everything they can to try to really wrench down on us folks at the local level because that's what they can do.
Yeah.
And that way they can show their constituency that, they're fighting back against the big bad administration.
It's always politics at the end of the day.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Bill. Here's a big one. I know you guys are trying to get the NFA repealed altogether. How is that fight going? We seen any light at the end of the tunnel? When can we lift that mother? Can I have a suppressor?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's already tremendous light at the end of the tunnel that didn't exist 2 years ago, right?
Okay.
Like if you had asked me 2 years ago, are you guys going to challenge the NFA this year? I'd say, look, I would love to. But I don't think it makes sense strategically because there are some other dominoes that we think probably need to fall before the courts are going to be willing to strike down the NFA.
Sure.
All of that kind of got kicked out the window, and the apple cart got upended when the Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed and signed by President Trump, and that reduced the tax burden on short-barreled firearms and suppressors down to zero.
Yeah.
That opened up a whole new legal avenue for us at Second Amendment Foundation because the legal justification that Congress used in passing the NFA, when they passed it, they said, look, this is not gun regulation that would have to pass Second Amendment muster. This is just a tax. So we can authorize passing the NFA using the Congress's taxing authority.
Yep.
Well, now there's no tax. So you can't now justify the NFA as a tax if the tax collection is zero. Mm-hmm. And crucially to what we're arguing now in court is the remaining registration requirements of the NFA, the fingerprints and the registration at the federal level, those were all put in place as a way to make sure people had paid their taxes. Well, you don't need to make sure that I didn't pay my $0 tax. You don't need a record to show that I didn't pay my $0 tax. So we're trying to get the whole thing tossed. And when I say the whole thing, I mean all of the requirements as to those sorts of items that the tax burden was reduced to zero. So it's short-barreled shotguns, SBRs, AOWs, silencers, and did I say short-barreled shotguns?
You did.
Yes.
Okay. So all the short-barreled firearms, AOWs, and silencers, those are the ones that are affected. So we now have 3 cases that we're supporting. All 3, we've have motions for summary judgment filed. So in essence, we've laid out the entirety of our arguments before the 3 district courts that we're in, and said, look, this is, 1, can't be a constitutionally justified tax because there's no tax, and 2, if you're going to try to justify it under Second Amendment grounds, there's no history and tradition of taxing certain types of commonly owned firearms. This whole thing's got to go. Hopefully we get some opinions out of the court sooner rather than later, and then we'll get these things up into the circuits of appeal, and we'll be on the road to the Supreme Court. That's the hope.
Yeah. And then hopefully it's just one of these where that goes away. You go to the gun shop, make your purchase, do your 4473 just like you would a regular firearm. Out the door you go. Amen.
Absolutely right. Yep. They will just be firearms just like everything else.
Yeah. How much easier would life be?
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
I mean, granted, we've seen that the times come down drastically. So I remember when I first got my suppressor, I put in for 3 stamps all at the same time. Now, you would think I would get the 3 stamps back at the same time. I think it was 12 months, 16 months, and 18 months, all submitted at the same time.
You know better than to assume any sort of efficiency or consistency from the federal government, Rick. Come on.
But it's the same name, right? They all went in together. Keep the paperwork. I guess this one got stuck on bubble gum and chucked over here.
I think they just throw them all loose into a giant pot and just pull them out when they feel like it. Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
At least they've expedited some things, So I think the last time I was at 3 days.
Yeah.
So
lead times have come way down. That's certainly helpful. What they did in large part was just shift the processing of those background checks to just basic electronic background checks. And as you know, like 85 or 90% of those background checks are instantaneous.
Yeah.
So there's no need for all of the folks that can get essentially instantly approved to have to wait 12 months for any sort of additional research or background check. They just run the next check. It comes back clean, approve it, get it out the door.
Yeah.
One other additional kind of cost of living, I guess quality of living adjustment that the new regs create is the elimination of the CLIO notification. So that's one of the new regs, is that when you put in an NFA application, to manufacture something like an SBR, typically you would get those extra sheets that would print out that you had to just mail away to your chief law enforcement officer. Right. Thankfully, a number of years ago, I guess it was under Trump 1, it was changed so that you didn't have to get their approval. You just had to notify them.
Yeah.
No longer do you even have to notify them.
Okay.
So once that regulation is passed and finalized, you won't even have to notify your chief law enforcement officer. So that's, it's just a quality of life improvement. It's one less administrative thing that you have to do when you file. And then also you don't have to kind of raise your hand and draw attention to yourself with your local law enforcement that you're a gun owner, which is a violation of your privacy. There's really no reason they need to know that. And now you don't have to kind of raise your hand and say, hey, here's my address and I'm making a new SBR. What business of it is theirs.
So is that across all spectrums? Because, I know, hey, you had to notify them that you're going to be a suppressor owner, right? Hey, if you bought too many guns, they had to be notified that you bought, at least in North Carolina, I think it was 3 or more. Hey, the sheriff needs. You bought 3 guns at once. Oh my God, what is this man doing?
So that reg in particular is just about. I think it's just for Form 1s for manufacture.
Okay.
I don't believe that one does not address the multi-firearm purchase, which is the other thing you're talking about, where there were certain additional notifications that were triggered by you buying either more than 3 or more than 5 guns within a certain period of time. I think it was 2 weeks or something. So this reg doesn't address that, I don't believe.
Okay.
But no longer do you have to, let your local chief of police know that you're buying a new gun or making one in this case.
Awesome. So where can people go to see what you're working on currently? Do you post that stuff and let them know what's in litigation, what's coming up?
Oh, yeah, we are everywhere. So our main website is saf.org. You can join, become a member, become a sponsor, set us up, with a one-time donation, recurring donations, we can take Bitcoin now if you want to keep it between us and you don't want, the
Right.
IRS to see what you're doing. So yeah, and there you can see we've got case pages for all 56 pieces of litigation. You can click directly through to the docket. You can see everything we're doing.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, we're real big on transparency here at Second Amendment Foundation. All of our tax documentation, everything is up on the website. Last year, we used 81% of every dollar that we got directly on the mission.
Wow.
So that's something that we're really proud of. We like to make sure that, when we get donations of people's hard-earned money, that represents, their time away from their family, their expertise, their skills that they've put to work for themselves. When they're generous enough to give that to us, that we spend it as the same way we would our own money.
Yeah.
So 81% of every dollar, 81 cents goes
Wow.
right to the mission. That's something we're really proud of. We're on all the social medias. We're on TikTok. No, we're not on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on X.
Send them to the website, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because the way we look at social is this. It's rented property. And as a renter, you can be kicked out of the house at any time. And we've been there, right?
That's
So
true.
whether it's your account being deactivated, hey, you put up a video about some type of action you guys are doing, then they opt to pull it. Always drive them to the website.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a newsletter that you guys do as well?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about, the forums and the platforms about how easily they can kick us off. We have a really robust old school mailing program where if you want to get on our mailing list, we will put physical things in the mail to you.
Okay.
And really the benefit there is as long as we put a stamp on it, it'll end up at you.
It has to.
The meta gods cannot.
It's the law.
The meta gods cannot take that away.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would absolutely encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. That way you get it digital, you get it in your inbox, but you also get things like our quarterly reporter in your mailbox.
Yeah.
And then you can read them directly and you don't have a digital middleman between
Yeah.
us.
No, that's fantastic because this day and age, we got to be strategic. We're trying to get information out, but how can we control that information that we're trying to deliver? Because like you said, Meta will come in and schwack you right at the knees, and they're just laughing to the bank.
Oh, yeah.
Now granted, they're going to steal all your data, everyone else who's on there, their data, sell it off, do all their stuff, right? But it's like, good for you guys for having a hard copy newsletter.
Yep, we're
digital.
an all of the above sort of org. We are that kind of unique mix of old school and new school. We've been around since 1974. We're in our 52nd year right
That's
now,
great.
That's awesome.
which we're really proud of. And so we have that kind of that legacy infrastructure where if you want postcards in the mail, we got you, and if you want to send us Bitcoin, we can handle that too.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do best of both.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know of anyone else doing that.
No.
It's like,
Oh,
I
that's
guess
great.
at some point we need to jump. We need to have a conversation after this about the Bitcoin thing. How do we get signed up for Bitcoin?
Oh, man. What's the website one more time?
SAF.org.
Awesome. For everyone else, thank you for making us part of your day. Make sure you go to ontheRangePodcast.com and check out OTRcrew.com. That's a great way to support the show, Rick, and also you get some behind the scenes and a lot of good training pro tips as well.
Yeah, and for the rest of you guys, don't forget, train hard, stay safe, and we'll see you on the range.